did my presentation on the most dangerous game.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay, so the story is basically a guy named Sanger Ravenford gets stranded on an island, and he's stranded. He looks for people. He finds someone. He goes to his sort of mansion on the island, and learns that this guy is going to hunt him for sport because he's become bored of hunting regular animals. And so as the game is enacted, Rainford uses his what is called the flight response in animals to evade his, I guess now captor, General Zarhov, who was he used to be a general for the Tsars in Russia, but he left after the Soviet Union kind of began to take hold. And so, however, in the game, I think it's good to put Zarov as more like the hare and the tortoise and the hare. He's very overly ambitious and thinks, I can just take my time on this, whereas Rainford is more like the tortoise. So, and, he bides his time and waits to enact his plan. Rainford has the brains, and Zarov has the bronze, except Rainford has more brain and bronze than Zarov. Certainly Zarov is not his equal in any way, as if anyone really could be. In the end, Rainford switches course and goes into the fight response and winds up sneaking into Zarov's room and confronting him. And in the end, we really don't know what happens to Zarov. However, it's implied that Rainford sleeps in his bed and it was the most comfortable night of his life. So either he killed Zarov or he turned Zarov into the next game. So I think this really shows that humans are, in fact, animals, and that So Zarov embodies the result of humans' cognitive and social evolution, which has made humans into what I like to view as the most vicious animal of all. But, and it's kind of an interesting question. Could humans really survive if they stopped preying upon each other? Because we are, in essence, an apex predator with no competition, so we have no one that can pick us off except for ourselves. And it's kind of interesting that barbarism seems to be the human nature rather than, peace. I don't think anyone can name a single century that's had total peace between humans. And peace would be quite boring, and I think humans would become decadent and die off. As stated, humans are an apex predator, and as such, we very much prey on one another. If you think I'm wrong, just look at the creation of the nuclear bomb for means of mass genocide. So what I really think this is it dispels the idea of natural and inherent rights. There is truly no such thing as a natural and inherent right. If rights were an inalienable bestowal upon us, how could one be deprived of him like Rainford was, turned into nothing more than an animal that was hunted? Unless, of course, they are as much an abstraction of any of the other pillars of our contemporary consciousness. If rights consisted of realities unto themselves, no one would be able to hand them out, and no one would have the power to rescind them. They'd constitute absolutes beyond the interference of men. And so the only real right you have, as exemplified this, is what your might creates your right. You must prove your right by deeds of might, of splendor and renown. If need be, march through flames of hell to dash opponents down. If need be, die on scaffold high in the morning's misty gray. For liberty or death is still and forever the logic of today. And I think it also kind of shows that two wrongs make a right, if you think about it, because one could very easily say that what Zaroff did is wrong, though I'm not going to claim moral absolutism. But if a wrong is gotten away with, and someone else repeats it as it's somewhat implied that Rainford did in the end, a right is birthed into existence. The wrong becomes righter each time it succeeds, and we can only guess how many times Zaroff has done this. And as much as victors always assume historical rights, it can't be any other way. And this is not to imply that anything becomes intrinsically noble through repetition, that only successive acceptance of anything confers rectitude. That said, there is no such thing as a moral right. There is only true right, which is the natural law, versus acquired right, bestowed by popular consensus and usage. Morality is a human invention conferred by the self-serving interests of the sensually impoverished. So, in essence, this pretty much negates the whole idea of natural rights, as stated. And, yeah, these are my sources.
Okay.
And I think, especially with these last two, it kind of shows that, in the end, if Zaroff was killed by Rainford, there's a very interesting quote from Revolt of the Angels that says, God conquered will become Satan, Satan conquered will become God. You know, it's a never-ending loop. And if you want a contemporary example of this in history, We the Living by Ayn Rand shows that with the Soviet Union and the communist revolution there, the proletariat became the very bourgeois that they don't like and claim to be so against. And yeah, that's my presentation. Any questions?
Do you think humans will ever just go back to their natural instincts to prey on one another, or do you think we can evolve past that?
I think we go back to those all the time. I don't think that we really could evolve past it unless if we somehow created some sort of digital consciousness that would remove that impulse, but I don't see that as being a very high possibility.
Do you think a situation like this could occur in real life as opposed to historical?
Certainly, I think it happens all the time. Just look at, the world today. You see larger countries preying on smaller ones. You see larger people preying on weaker ones. That's just how it is. Barbarism is the way of humanity.
Do you think that killers being killed is morally just?
I don't see anything wrong with killers being killed. I don't think that they broke the social contract that we created, so they have to pay the consequences. But I'm not going to say that it's moral or not, because that's really just an abstraction.
I do have a question. As far as we look at this, and we see this with the most dangerous game, this tug and pull between civilization and nature.
Yes.
I mean, we look at the rules, civilization rules, or man's law, or human beings' law, I should say, versus the laws of nature. But this is the thing. Human beings are both part of nature and part of civilization. We don't neatly fit into both. So, hence, we see these struggles, and we look at them historically as well. Rome being a classic example. The idea of hitting people, using them as a form of entertainment, or a precursor to this most dangerous game. This idea is the possibility. Could we go back to something like this? I'll pause for a second. Hello?
Any questions in the meantime?
Yes. Yes. Next period, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome. Bye.
So, what I want you to consider, and I think we all should consider this, is the fact is where does man or human beings take place? Where do we fit in the scheme of things? Do we fit more in civilization? Do we fit more in nature? Or do we straddle a line between both?
I think civilization is more of a a thing that came around as a result of tribes being brought more close together as people kind of spread out and got closer. And I don't see civilizations as being that indifferent to what we just said. I mean, just look at, one civilization will conquer another. That's just how it is. You can take any number of the three main modern conflicts right now as evidence of that. And I'm not going to say which side is right because we really don't have that authority. And I think that, whoever really has the might is who is right, regardless of what we like to believe personally. The victor gets the gold and writes history. If Hitler had won, he would have written history as everyone on the West being the enemy and the bad guys. But with the West winning, we wrote it as Hitler being the evil.
But we look at the fact as we talk about with Socrates, it talks about Plato in the Republic says that those with power should rule as far as he's Glaucon speaking to Socrates, and Socrates says in terms of justice. Those with power are not concerned with the rights of justice. We look at how does justice fit into this. And we think about this notion of justice tying it back into the most dangerous game. Where is justice in this?
Well, I think that if you want to talk about justice, I think that it's retributive justice. If Rainford killed Zaroff, it was just justice because Zaroff was trying to kill Rainford, so Rainford kills Zaroff. Eye for an eye.
Right. But in this case, is Zaroff, because he's being punished ultimately for what he does, is he violating the laws of nature or is he violating the laws of civilization? Is he violating both?
He's violating the laws of civilization. I don't think he's violating the laws of nature because you can see, even in the Romans with the Colosseum and the Circus Maximus, they would put on shows of this. And now we like to think those are terrible, terrible things, but, as time progresses and environments change, so do human ideas, but I don't think that we really change. I mean, just look at MMA fighting. It's essentially the same thing. Mixed martial arts, we still have the same impulse, but we don't really we don't like to get our hands dirty.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.